What's up YouTube? My name is Chad. This is the Wisco Boater channel. Welcome back to another episode of Off-Season Maintenance on Thirsty Whale. This morning's project is hopefully going to be a fun one because it involves wiring something new. I always enjoy wiring projects. This boat has a high water alarm in the bilge, but it doesn't work. So I'll go downstairs and show you that first. And then all right, down in the engine room, I've got all 3 battery banks turned on, which would be the normal setting when we're on the dock. The high water bilge alarm is required when you're on dock water. So this boat, as I said, has one. It's down here, this little white thing right here. And if I push it up, there should be an alarm associated with that. But I think there probably was a housing or something that was once present that's no longer there. So that goes up to and over to that little red alarm notification box there. So as you can see, it does not work. So, okay, back upstairs, and this is my workbench for the time being until I get the new countertop put in or a board or something in place here. But so in amongst the socket set here is the new high water bilge alarm. That is this right here, a float inside a canister. This is the actual alarm itself. Wires drop into the back side there. And we have the mounting bracket here. This is from Ultimate Outdoor Products. Don't remember how much this was. I bought this over a year ago. But here we've got an inline fuse holder, some butt splices, ring terminals, 1 amp fuses. The specs on this are 12 to 32 volts DC at 500 milliamps. So a 1 amp fuse will be sufficient. And then we've got the positive yellow wiring here and black wiring here, about 15 feet each of that. In boats, if you're not familiar or don't know, 12 volt DC is now coded yellow. We don't use red on boats anymore, so I bought yellow and black. So I will get the leads wired into the back of the alarm here, connect it to the wiring that comes off the float, and then we'll go back down and connect it to the battery to test it, and then we'll figure out how to mount it, or where to mount it. All right, looks like a mess of wires, but I have the positive side of the circuit ready to go. So we've got a lead off the battery through the fuse, and then that wire goes to this splice here. So we have positive coming into the butt splice and then positive coming out. The little red wire goes to the float. The yellow wire is going to go to slot number 2 on the back side here. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and get the positive wire routed, get the float mounted, and then we'll figure out how long our wiring run needs to be up to where I'm going to put the actual alarm. So back down to the engine compartment, and I'll show you where I get this mounted and where the wiring is going to go. Okay, so I've got the first wire installed in slot number 1 there. That's the wire off of the float. And then the second wire that I'm going to install is going to be the yellow wire, number 2, into the number 2 slot. It's going to mount right like that. And then our last wire is the one directly from the battery. So this is negative return back to the battery. I'm gonna stop the camera, or stop the recording for just a second, because I gotta fish this wire through a bunch of cable clamps, or zip ties, I mean. All right. one. One direct from the battery. Should go in the last remaining slot, number 3. Right, like so. These little precision screwdrivers are really hard to get tightened down. Really hard to get any torque on it or to tighten anything down with. Yeah, so right there feels super tight, but I don't know if I can get it any tighter than that. All right, I think that's good. Okay, and I've got 2 self-tapping screws. All right, wires are in. I'll tidy everything up here in a little bit. I gotta run power back to the battery and then make our battery connections, and then we'll test this thing. So I think that's okay where it's at. Yeah. All right, we'll see what happens here in a minute. Hook up the battery. Okay, I got my wires hooked up to the house battery. I'll zip tie those up, get them looking nice and clean again. But here's the wiring run as it goes back to the float and then up to the sounder, which we now have a green power light showing on. And if we take a screwdriver and push the float up, we should get an alarm. This will probably be loud. I'll probably edit this sound down a little bit. Okay, that's good. And when the alarm comes on, or the red light come on. So we now have a functioning high bilge or high water bilge alarm that takes the place of this old unit over here that simply does not work. So I'll probably pull that out at some point. I'm not gonna worry about it today, but good to have the new one on and monitored for high water now. Oh, and by the way, before I get the wires tidied up here, you can see the connections to the battery. I've got a fuse inline there, 1 amp fuse, and I did bypass the house battery switch so that this high bilge, I keep calling it high bilge, so that this high water bilge alarm will always be on. So whether the battery's on or off, it will be monitored for high water. The only power draw that will happen on the house battery all the time is that little green LED light. So not worried about that drawing down the battery, but I do want to make sure that it's monitored at all times. One final note before I leave the engine room down here, I did have a viewer, subscriber, ask about where my shower sump was located, and that's where it's at. So we're between the engines here, and my aft shower sump is located right there. So pretty easy access when it comes to cleaning that. I did not video cleaning it, but it is all nice and spick and span clean again. But just for you, that's where it's located. That project was not hard. It was just took longer than I thought it would because I didn't have the tools, or I was missing wiring, or didn't have enough wiring, didn't have the right connectors, all that stuff that usually happens. So 4 trips to Ace Hardware today, and I have 1 project done. So it's just before 3 o'clock. Buildings close at 4, and I'm not going to start anything else today. So I'm going to get things straightened up around here, head back home. So we'll see you next time for another episode. Thanks for watching this one. Happy boating, everybody.